Hey, what's up, guys? So we haven't had a rant in a while, and we got a big fight coming up this weekend in Atlanta. And there's been plenty of back and forth on Twitter that I wanted to talk about. Specifically, I want to talk about some of the criticism Ring Magazine has been getting from a few people this week on Twitter. There's been a couple of back and forths between myself and some individuals, Tom Gray and Doug Fisher and some individuals. And I wanted to clear the air on some things and just shed some light on this, okay? Because a lot of what's being posted is disingenuous. And I think it's either very, very calculated that these people are trying to be misinformed or trying to misinform people, or they're just not doing full research. They're just ignorant and they're posting things where they don't quite understand what they're posting. So this week, okay, we have Gervonta Davis fighting Mario Barrios in Atlanta, Showtime pay-per-view, and it's for a version of the 140-pound title that the WBA has. And our position at Ring is that we do not consider any of the WBA titles legit unless it's the super title, the highest ranking WBA title. The WBA has become ridiculous with their titles, right? They have the super, the regular, the interim. I think there's a gold title. And there's one other one I'm missing. There are some divisions where they literally have 5 title holders, right? It's at least 4 or 5. And the WBC has kind of followed the WBA's lead on some of this, and they're starting to go crazy with all their titles as well. And it just so happens that the WBA and the WBC have kind of bought into the PBC business. They have title holders with other promotional outfits, but they've really bought into the PBC business. And to be fair, the WBO, I call them, we're Bob's organization because they bought into the top rank business long ago. The only distinction I would make is that the WBO doesn't have 8,000 title holders. They have 1 title holder per division. So holding a WBO title in many cases these days holds more credence and value and worth than holding a WBA title. Now, if I told you that 20 years ago, you'd say I was crazy. But now in 2021, that is the case the majority of the time. Anyway, 140 pounds, the undisputed, legitimate champion is Josh Taylor. This cannot be disputed or denied in any way, shape, or form. We just had the fight between him and Ramirez recently where they unified all the belts, right? There's no franchise crap to muck it up, any of that stuff. But Davis versus Barrios is being marketed as a championship fight. Now, my position and everybody else at Ring, and there's been a few of us who have been maybe a little more vocal about this. Some other guys kind of play the role more, and they just don't get into this stuff as much as some of us more boxing nerds, like myself, Tom Gray, Doug Fisher, and there are others. But we've talked about this week the fact that we like the fight. It's an intriguing matchup. It's not the first, second, third, fourth, or fifth best fight that could be made for Tank right now in 3 different divisions, but it's still an intriguing matchup. It's a quality fight. I'm interested in checking it out. And by the way, I'm going to cover the event for ringtv.com. And I welcome everybody watching this. Before you make your judgments and say what you're going to say, read my recap Saturday night. It might be technically early Sunday morning, depending on what part of the world you're at. Read my recap. See if you see or find any bias there or any lies or anything like that, misinformation in my recap for this event. I'm going to cover it without bias and tell the truth like I always do with every other event that I cover for Ring Magazine or ringtv.com. But our position is we like the fight, quality fight, not pay-per-view worthy, but it's a quality fight. From a business perspective, I get what they're doing over there, putting on pay-per-view. Okay, but this is not a championship fight. It's not a title fight. We don't recognize it as a title fight, okay? And that is our position, and we're pretty consistent on that. Now, Ring Magazine has detractors. And when you're one of the top brands, I think that we're the best magazine in the sport, and we go back a century, we have a lot of history, you're going to have detractors. And they're going to find ways to try to misrepresent you and go after you. And one of the things that's brought up all the time is our association with Golden Boy Promotions, okay? And people will say, well, Golden Boy influences your ratings. Absolutely not true. The people saying that are completely unaware of number one, who's on the Ring Ratings Committee, and more importantly, number two, our process. Not one employee at Golden Boy Promotions is involved really in anything Ring Magazine does. It's a completely different company, a completely different office, if you will, but they have absolutely no bearing on our ratings. So that's basically just a rumor. And I understand it's an easy dynamic to draw, and people who are too lazy to do research and find out, or ask somebody like me or Doug or Tom or anybody else, they'll just believe it. Okay, so my thing is, if you go to our pound for pound list, there isn't one Golden Boy ranked fighter. If you look at the divisions, look at our divisional ratings, you will not find where Golden Boy fighters are being overrated. At the same time, if you go to ESPN's ratings, how long did they have Terrence Crawford #1 pound for pound, and other fighters, top ranked fighters that were overrated? ESPN overrates top ranked fighters. Gee, I wonder why. Other media outlets that are in bed with PBC overrate PBC fighters. Gee, I wonder why. I'm not just saying this because I'm a Ring employee. I've always felt that Ring Magazine's ratings, if you put them up against anybody else, we stack up pretty damn well. I'd put our ratings up against anybody. We smoke everybody else, okay? There's only a few publications whose ratings I trust personally. And of course, Rings is up there, okay? I think we're the best, but even if you don't think we're the absolute best, and our ratings aren't perfect, no ratings are. It's an imperfect system. It's an imperfect endeavor. But I'd put us up there against the top 2, 3 anytime in all of boxing, and I think we stack up well. Okay. What people will do, okay, is they will find an instance which represents maybe a fraction of a percent of the totality of instances where we're rating fighters, as an example of how Ring is manipulated, or Ring, the rating system is flawed, or they're being influenced, or they've lost all credibility. And what people will do is they'll be like, well, 5 years ago, you recognized this belt here in this situation, but you don't recognize it today. Or, 18 months ago, you said this, but today you're saying that. When these people do this, they never provide context. They never provide details. It's just a screenshot of something, and they're purposely misrepresenting it. I saw an example on Twitter this week where there's an individual who routinely goes after Ring Magazine, and I don't know whether they're purposely trying to misinform people or they're just lazy with their research, but they constantly post things that are easily explainable. And they posted this week that we recognized, or I retweeted Leonard Ellerby, who for some reason, when somebody was questioning this title fight between his fighter and Mario Barrios this weekend, he brought up Canelo, because everyone's got to bring up Canelo right now to prove a point or something. By the way, Canelo hasn't been a Golden Boy Promotions fighter for a while now. He's not at all affiliated with Golden Boy anymore. In fact, you've seen him and Oscar going at it on social media. So we're not doing Canelo any favors, or whatever people out there say, right? Anyway, I retweeted that we didn't, and this is because Leonard brought up Canelo. I wasn't pulling it out of my ass. He did. And I like Leonard. I get it. He's a promoter. He's doing what promoters are supposed to do. Okay. I get it. But there's manipulation and spin going on here. And the reason why guys like me are sought after and people follow me is because I'm the guy who deciphers through all that bullshit for you guys and translates it in truth. Okay. But I responded that Ring didn't recognize Canelo's WBA title when he fought Rocky Fielding, when he had the regular title either. So bringing that up, it doesn't make any sense, right? So you guys can go out there and see that tweet. It got pretty good response. Now, but there were a few people who responded, and there was a guy out there tweeting back and forth with Doug and Tom, that we did recognize Canelo Alvarez's WBA regular title when he fought Tom Gray. And they posted something from the Ring TV site where I think Canelo, it was after or maybe it was before. I can't remember if it was before or after the actual fight. But it was either Rocky Fielding or Canelo Alvarez was called the WBA champion. Now, what this person didn't tell everybody is that this wasn't a Ring Magazine or Ring TV article. It was a digital version of the fight program. Now, this goes back to when Canelo was with Golden Boy Promotions. Okay. I'm very familiar with that fight program because I contributed to it. I actually have a copy of it right here because I just like to put this person, not them, but their concept, their note, their attempt at blowing Ring up just completely on blast. This is the fight program. You will not find any Ring magazine branding on it. Okay, that's the front. Here's the back. Now, there's plenty of branding right here, right? You guys see Golden Boy, Canelo Alvarez, Matchroom, DAZN, MSG. There's all your logos. Do you see Ring magazine? No, you don't see it. Why? This is not a Ring piece. But there are contributors to Ring Magazine who contributed to this fight program, right? Myself and Tom Gray and some others. If you're Golden Boy Promotions and you have access to Ring's wonderful writers, why wouldn't you pluck a few of them and assign them to contribute to your fight program? Does that not make sense? That's simple contracting, right? You contract out to people that you're familiar with and have a working relationship with to contribute to your promotional program. This is absolutely separate from Ring Magazine. So what ended up happening is in this program, okay, I should state, this was called a WBA title fight. The WBA title was brought up here in my piece, I think in Tom's piece, maybe in others. I'm not going to go through all these pieces in here, guys, but I can quickly bring up, here's mine, right? And then I think somewhere, yeah, right around here, you see WBA, boom. Okay. So the WBA title was brought up in this promotional program. Now, what this person on Twitter disingenuously did is they took a screenshot of when we posted this program for our subscribers, our digital subscribers on our website. We routinely do this. We provide additional material for our subscribers. It's called bringing value to your subscribers, showing them appreciation. By the way, this month, if you are a subscriber and you get the magazine this month, guess what you also get? A gift. 20-year commemorative issue talking about Showbox, the next generation, right? So if you order this, you get this with it. It's called providing value for your subscribers. This is something we do all the time, okay? And for our digital subscribers, we'll take stuff like this, we'll take a digital version of it and throw it on the site so they can check it out. This person save screened that and tried to represent it as a ringtv.com article. Absolutely false. Okay. This is the kind of stuff that happens all the time. And this person and the people that follow him and people like him are disingenuous. They're lying to you guys because they have an agenda. I want to show you guys the recap on our site that Doug Fisher did the night of the fight. Okay. That was a Ring TV article. And I want to show you something that this person on Twitter, I guess they just forgot to bring this part up. Let me share my screen here. I love how these guys work, man. Love how these guys work. They're completely full of shit. All right. Can you guys see this? Yes, you can. Here it is. Canelo Alvarez makes short work of Rocky Fielding with New York City DAZN debut by Doug Fisher. Best in the biz. So if we scroll down here, let me find it. Okay. I'm going to go right here. Alvarez won the Ring, WBC, and WBA middleweight titles with a narrow majority decision over Gennady Golovkin in September. And we continue. Here we go. Fielding, who held the WBA's secondary title, which the Ring does not recognize, was the magazine's #1 rated super middleweight, blah, blah, blah. There you go, guys. This is the actual article on ringtv.com. The actual recap of the fight that Doug Fisher did, where he specifically calls it a secondary title, which Ring does not recognize. That's what the person on Twitter and everybody else failed to mention. Gee, I wonder why. So once again, I have to make this clear. Ring Magazine doesn't recognize the WBA regular title. Golden Boy Promotions, keyword promotions, promoting their fighter in a promotional program, mentioned the title. Just the same way Leonard Ellerbe and Mayweather Promotions is mentioning Mario Barrios' secondary WBA regular title as part of their promotion for their fight. Ring didn't recognize Canelo's title. We don't recognize the title Davis is going to get because he's going to knock Barrios out tomorrow in the later rounds, in the second half of the fight. This is pretty simple to follow, guys. One other thing I want to bring up, there was a video from a Teddy Atlas rant that one of the Ring detractors was bringing up. And this guy is just a whack job. Some of the things he brought up afterwards, which have nothing to do with this entire discussion. So this guy clearly revealed his cards. He's an absolute whack job. But he kept sharing videos of Teddy Atlas beating the shit out of Ring Magazine in a video that was, I don't know, a couple years ago, saying that we've lost all credibility and ranting about how we don't rate Gervonta Davis high enough and maybe some other fighters. I don't know. I didn't watch the entirety of the video or whatever podcast, whatever episode of his podcast it was from. But I watched this little rant he went on. Listen, guys, I like Teddy Atlas, okay? But Teddy has an agenda. And there are people at Ring that Teddy has beefed with and held a grudge with for decades. And if anybody in boxing can hold a grudge, it's Teddy Atlas. Mike Tyson. Yeah, Google that. Teddy can hold a grudge. And Teddy has been known to hold grudges. It's a personality flaw, and we all have them. I have plenty of personality flaws, okay? So I'm not judging. But Teddy has an agenda, number one, and he holds grudges. So Teddy, at any chance he gets, is going to beat up on Ring Magazine. He's not going to mention any of the nuances either, right? He's just going to find a way to get a viral moment on social media because Teddy's very, very crafty. In terms of the actual boxing industry, most people have kind of moved on past Teddy. He's had his time, and he knows this. He's a little bitter about it, and he's trying to ingratiate himself to the MMA/UFC crowd and to the mainstream casual sports media because that's where he can squeeze his ass in right now, okay? So if you just follow him on social, you'll see a pattern there, okay? I'm not even talking about his thing with Ring Magazine. I'm just talking about with boxing in general. He goes on these little rants. He's very crafty at what he does. He understands social media, hashtags, viral clips, how to get clicks. Teddy, he gets it. He knows when the camera's on and to turn on the "we all firemen" rants, right? He understands when that camera's off, Teddy's a much different dude. I say this as someone who likes Teddy, all right? Just like with Leonard Ellerbe, I like Leonard. He's a charming guy. He's really a nice guy. Off camera, totally different dude. On camera, there's a different face. It's the same thing with Teddy. These guys have a job, a role to play, and they're doing it. I get it. Again, it's my job to just tell you guys to translate what they're saying into truth. All right? If truth was a language, I'm the interpreter for that. Okay? If you don't like my version of the truth, then there's somebody out there you might prefer better. Let them do it. All I'm saying is promoters, and Teddy is basically a self-promoter, right? And he has an agenda, and he's going for a certain audience that isn't necessarily the diehard boxing audience anymore. He left them behind. They kind of left him behind, honestly. It's a two-way street. But those guys are doing what they're doing, okay? Guys like me translate what they're saying for you because there's a lot of bullshit, okay? So as it relates to Gervonta Davis in our ratings, there are people out there who constantly bring up the fact that not many PBC fighters are on Ring Magazine's pound-for-pound ratings. In fact, the only one who's currently rated in our pound-for-pound top 10 is Errol Spence. And there are people out there that have Gervonta Davis on their pound-for-pound list, that have both Charlo brothers on their pound-for-pound list, and we don't. And we constantly get criticized for this. Oh, you're biased against Al Heyman. You know, you're biased against PBC. That's the best we get. And then sometimes it's you're racist and all this, which is absolutely insane because we have fighters from all backgrounds ethnic groups on our ratings. It's ridiculous to even bring that up. But if I look at the pound for pound list, and once again, I'll share my screen with you guys so you can see this. Give me a second. Let me bring this up. All right, here we go. All right, you guys see that, first of all, there's no Golden Boy Promotions fighters on the pound for pound list. But we have Matchroom, we have Top Rank, we have PBC. We have a couple other smaller promoters represented here, fighters from all over the world. But as it comes to Gervonta Davis, who would you take off our current pound for pound list and put Gervonta Davis up there, replace with Gervonta Davis? No one on here. Gervonta Davis's resume isn't pound for pound top 20 worthy right now. And Jermell Charlo, you can make an argument, okay? If I think that Vasily Lomachenko's resume is still much, much better than Jermell Charlo. I even think Errol Spence's resume is better right now. But there are some of you out there who may take a guy like Loma off and put Jermell on. That's fair. I disagree with it, but you can make an argument. Now, if Lomachenko struggles or loses against Nakatani and Charlo goes on to beat Castaño, which I think he will, then there's no denying Charlo's a top 10 pound for pound fighter at that point because he will have cleaned out 154. So that's different. But as it stands right now, I'm pretty good with our top 10. I really, really am. And there are people out there, for the record, there are a lot of people out there who don't think Spence should be rated as highly as he is. And they say we're biased toward American fighters. So we get it from everybody, right? There are people out there who don't like that we got Bud Crawford and Errol Spence rated as highly as we do, and that we're biased toward Americans. So we get it from every corner of the earth. Such is life. But as it relates to PBC boxing, and let me be specific about Gervonta Davis, because that's Mayweather Promotions. There is a business plan there. And Leonard Ellerbe has made it very, very clear in interviews he's done, and so has Floyd. Their goal right now is to build Tank's brand, to get him, and they're marketing to a very specific audience. They're not marketing to a mainstream audience. They're going for a certain niche audience, but they want that niche audience, even though they're a small group of people, to be loyal and dedicated to Tank and to pay money every time Tank fights, whether they're going to the fights, buying tickets, or buying the pay-per-view. That is their primary mission right now, is to make Tank a guy that can sell 500,000 pay-per-views and fill up a 15, 20,000 seat arena in multiple states or multiple cities in the United States. So that's what they're going for. They're fighting in Atlanta for the second time. And by the way, they're going to sell it out, but they're only going to sell it out because they're slashing and discounting tickets. There are still tons of tickets available for Davis Barrios right now, and some of them are going at 25% of sticker price, okay? I talked to ticket brokers. I know what's going on. And that was the same way with his fight against Gamboa in Atlanta as well. This one's selling a little slower than that one actually did, but still. And this happens with all promotions. I'm just letting you guys know, it's not as if this thing sold out in a week at full sticker price. Very few fights do. But there's a pattern here, okay? And what they're trying to do, and I don't fault them at all for this. This is their business, and this is how they want to run it. Cool. They don't care about fighting the best fighters. They're cherry-picking every opponent. It's either going to be an old, faded fighter, a guy moving up in weight, or maybe Tank will move up and fight one of the weaker guys in the division, which Barrios is right now. He's a top 10 140, but just barely. He's probably, I think we have him rated 8th right now at Ring, but after this fight, I don't even know if he's a top 10 guy. He's right at the borderline, in my opinion, at 140. And no disrespect to him, it just is what it is, right? But that's what they're doing there, and they're going to fight twice a year. They're going to try to sell out venues, whether it's Baltimore or Atlanta. At some point, they're going to go to Vegas and go for the casino money. And then they're going to fight on Showtime pay-per-view twice a year. And they're going to sell 200,000. Then it's going to get to 250 to 300. They're going to try to build up that pay-per-view brand with Tank. And so he's being marketed as this pay-per-view star. That's bullshit. He's not. Anyone can fight on pay-per-view. I could fight my neighbor and put it on my YouTube channel right here and charge a pay-per-view price. Now, I might only sell 500 pay-per-views, right? There might be 500 people out there who will pay $10 to watch me fight my neighbor, maybe more, but that's it. And then what? Am I a pay-per-view fighter at that point? No, just because you fight on pay-per-view doesn't mean you're a pay-per-view fighter. But that's the spin. That's the promotional stuff that I'm talking about in this video of how you talk to casual fans. A lot of people that watch Tank fight, they don't really watch boxing. They don't watch when anyone else fights. They watch when Tank Davis fights. Very similar to Floyd's fans, right? That's what they're going for. Although Floyd did market himself to the mainstream casual audience more, and he was good at that. But Floyd's diehard loyal supporters were guys that pretty much only watched boxing when Floyd fought. That's what they're going for with Tank. I got nothing wrong with that. That's your business model, cool. But that's not going to get you up in our ratings. I don't give a shit. We don't care at Ring how many tickets you sell, how many pay-per-view buys you do, whether your pay-per-view tanks or it makes a ton of money. We don't give a shit whether you fight on free TV, premium cable, or pay-per-view. What we care about is who you fight and how you perform and your consistency. There are many factors that go into this, but it's really about resume. And the reason why we have guys like Josh Taylor, Teofimo Lopez, who are, well, Taylor's a little older than Tank, Teo's a little younger, but in terms of their career, they're all kind of the same. They've been pro fighter about the same length of time, right? Not exactly, but kind of similar, right? Similar age in their careers. The reason why we have those guys rated pound for pound and we don't have Tank Davis rated pound for pound is pretty clear. It's pretty obvious if you follow the sport and you understand what fights matter and what fights don't in terms of the best fighting the best. Pretty easy to understand. It's not because there's some influencer or somebody's paying us to rate these guys. By the way, we don't get money for our ratings. We don't charge sanctioning fees. Okay. Our belt, we don't charge money for that. You don't pay to get rated with us. You do have to pay to get rated by the sanctioning organizations. You have to pay just to get rated. I'm not even talking about fighting for a title. You have to pay to get registered and rated by the sanctioning organizations. We don't do that. All right. It's free. So the notion that money is somehow involved is ridiculous, but we rate those guys pound for pound because they're the undisputed champions of their division. We don't rate Gervonta Davis pound for pound because he's not. Now, you may think with your eye test that he has pound for pound talent, pound for pound potential, pound for pound power. Okay, we could have that discussion and I might agree with you. But in terms of resume and accomplishments, fighting on pay-per-view and selling out arenas in Baltimore and Atlanta does not matter when you're rating a fighter. That's it. There's no bias in that. It's just called truth. And it just so happens to be that the promotional business model at PBC, not that other promoters don't do this, because they all do. All promotional outfits are going after their self more than anybody else, right? Their self-interests. All of them do it. But PBC has a very particular business model. I think it's outdated. I think it's damaging American boxing's brand in terms of the scope of American boxing because it's becoming more and more streamlined and smaller. Less and less people in America give a shit about boxing over the last 10 to 20 years. So I don't think it's necessarily healthy for the sport, but it's getting some of their guys paid. But the model is very low risk, highest possible reward, even if it means going to pay-per-view that 200,000 people are going to buy, even 100,000 people are going to buy, because if they're paying 70, 80 bucks, you're still getting seven figures there. They'd rather do that and fight maybe, even if it's only fighting once a year, than fight on regular TV for less money in front of a bigger audience. It's just a different way of doing business. Okay. And again, that's fine if that's the way you want to run your business. That's your right. But you're not going to get rated higher because you sell more tickets. And I saw an interview with Leonard Ellerbe, and again, I get what Leonard's doing. He's a promoter. He's supposed to spin. Basically, being a promoter is like being a politician. You're supposed to kind of lie and spin. Drives me nuts, but that I could never be a promoter. That's why. But he was saying that he was asked about Josh Taylor and Tank fighting Josh Taylor. He's like, well, you got to bring something to the party. You know, Josh Taylor, his last fight against Ramirez only had about 1,000 people there. We're about to do, 10, 15,000 with Tank and Barrios. Well, you're leaving out some details there, Leonard. And there are people out there who just want to hear what Leonard said, and they'll retweet that and be like, here you go. This is it. First of all, Taylor does bring something to the party. The Ring magazine title and all the other sanctioning organization titles. That's what Taylor brings to the party. But the reason why only 1,000 people were at that fight between Taylor and Ramirez was due to COVID restrictions. The venue was at, I think, 50% capacity, and people over in the UK and that part of the world, in Scotland, where Taylor's from, couldn't travel, right? It was very limited travel. And the venue in Vegas, the Nevada State Athletic Commission officials there would not allow a certain amount. I think it was maybe 1,500 was capacity for that fight. Do I think Top Rank screwed up that promotion? Yes. I think Top Rank should have put that fight in Texas, where they could have done a much bigger crowd. I think they could have handled that situation much, much differently. But financially, they did it because they had to deal with the Virgin Hotels, the casino, a multi-fight deal, and their guys got paid. A lot of it, behind the scenes that a lot of people don't know about, but they worked out a certain deal. It is what it is. But that's why there was only 1,000 people there. It's not because Taylor Ramirez wasn't a good fight and that fans weren't interested. A lot of you were interested and couldn't get tickets. Remember that? I talked about it a lot on my show. I thought it was a gross mishandling of the entire situation by Top Rank, but still, that's why. If Taylor were to have a mandatory defense in Scotland later this year, it's going to do a massive crowd. And there won't be a bunch of giveaway tickets. It'll actually sell as long as COVID and everything allows for it. But he'll do a massive crowd over there. Does anybody think otherwise? So am I saying that Josh Taylor has the star power in the United States that Gervonta Davis does? No. Neither one of them are mainstream stars or crossover boxing stars. Tank isn't either. Tank's audience is very niche. He's marketed to a niche audience. But Josh Taylor's audience here in the United States is just diehard boxing fans of all backgrounds, by the way, that appreciate him. But it's just diehard boxing fans. So Tank gets diehard boxing fans plus his niche audience that pays attention on social media and everything like that. So yeah, he's a bigger star here in that regard. Neither one of them's a star. He's a bigger name. He's a bigger brand here in the U.S. than Josh Taylor. So fucking what? Who has all the belts? If you are a Gervonta Davis fan, what you should care about, if he's going to fight at 140, is you should want to see him fight Taylor. And I understand you'd want to look out for your man, so you want it to be on neutral territory. And since Tank is the bigger name, that fight should be in the United States. Put it on in Vegas, go for the casino money. You got my blessing on that. Totally understand. Even though Taylor has the belts, that fight shouldn't go overseas. It should be here in the United States because Tank is the bigger brand and you could do bigger business here with that fight. So I get that. I understand. But if you're a Tank Davis fan and he's going to stay at 140, you should want him to fight Josh Taylor. If you're a Tank Davis fan, he's going to go back down to 135 after this cherry pick Saturday night. You should want him to fight Teofimo Lopez. You should be banging the drums. You should be tweeting Leonard Ellerbe, Floyd Mayweather, and Tank Davis himself and everybody involved there for him to fight one of those two guys. That's what you should be saying. The diehard boxing fans are saying that, but that niche audience I talked about, they're not. They don't give a shit. Tank Davis could fight a cab driver tomorrow and they'll watch. So that's what they're going for over there on that promotion. And all I'm trying to explain to you guys is that's their prerogative. We got nothing against that. But that doesn't mean you're going to move up in our ratings above Josh Taylor because you sell more tickets than he does or you made more money than he did this year. We don't give a shit. We care about who you fought. Period. End of. All right. And a lot of the fanagers out there and the casual fans, they don't really care about none of that. They care about ticket sales. And basically, they repeat what the promoter tells them to say. It's the same way, I hate to say this, a lot of voters in the United States are. They vote the way their favorite athlete or favorite entertainer tells them to vote, or they just repeat whatever political talking points they heard on the Tonight Show or whatever, the Daily Show or whatever it is. You know, they're not really going to research the fine print in any of that. They're just going to repeat what they're being told because they're basically sheep. They want their confirmation bias fed. They're converted. They just want to be preached to with the message that they want to hear. Same thing here. All right. So there's no bias against any particular promoter or promotional outfit or network or ethnicity or nationality. No, that doesn't exist. By the way, our Ring ratings panel is comprised of panelists from all over the world. We have representation across the board on our panel, and it's a very democratic process. And if 50% of the panel thinks a certain fighter should be rated number 1, and the other 50% thinks they should be rated number 3, we settle at number 2. And that's the imperfect part I was telling you guys about, but it's a democratic process. So do I agree with every single rating we have now? No, I don't. There are some of them I completely disagree with, but that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of it. And it's not perfect, but every single week, every single month, every single year, we get a little closer to perfect because we're constantly improving and finding ways to do it better, right? And as all these extra titles hit, we have to find ways. How can we not let the WBA's 5,000 titles change our ratings? Because we have to be consistent. Well, we're not going to recognize blah, 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 blah. And that's how we go forth, right? This whole regular interim gold thing, this is a relatively new thing. Still figuring it all out. But so for people to use an example from 4 or 5 years ago, a lot of people will do this. They'll find that 1% of times of all the ratings we post, they'll find that 1% item that they can like try to use as well, here you were inconsistent 6 years ago. Dude, really? What about 2021? What about where we're at right now? This is a living, breathing thing. All right, guys, that's it. So by the way, Tank Davis is going to beat Mario Barrios this weekend, and the promotion's going to call him a 3-division champion. That's bullshit. Complete bullshit. He held a legitimate title at 130 pounds. The titles he's held at 135 and is about to have at 140 are bullshit. And we said the same thing at Ring about this guy, okay? Not in the promotional program. Different thing, not related to Ring. So I hope I made all that clear. And you enjoyed my rant. We'll have some more rants in the future. Enjoy the fights this weekend, guys. TNC Monday on Ring Digital's YouTube channel. Remember, that's where the live video is now. It's not here on my channel. It's on Ring's channel. A few of you have continued to ask about this as if you've been living under a rock. It's over at Ring now. All right. That's where the video is. Monday, 5 o'clock Eastern. All right, guys.